Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be breaking apart URLs and learning how to use those in our future project. We'll also understand URLs better because of this. Go ahead and click that like and subscribe button, and if you're ready to learn more, stay tuned. So here we are in our brand new Xcode project. Let's go ahead and let's get rid of some of this boilerplate code just because we don't need it right now. We'll go ahead and get rid of our VStack and our padding too, just to get that out of the way. And then we'll just leave the text of hello world. Now, to understand URLs better, usually in the mobile space, we end up having whatever URLs passed to us. We don't very frequently build URLs from the mobile side. We usually get them into the mobile side, and then we need to figure out a way to deal with them. And so that's what we're going to work on today. So let's go ahead and let's create a URL here that we are just going to pass, and that will be a URL. And we're going to build that URL based on a string, because that's the most common way that we get a URL. And this URL will be, and this isn't colon URL, this is equals a URL. So for our URL, let's just make a URL up really quickly. Let's say https://www.example.com/ let's just say videos, and then maybe 1 2 3, that works. And then we will add a query parameter onto this, and so we'll just say that our query parameter is Swift, and then %20. It's a URL encoding, which essentially just means a space in URL world, in ASCII world. And so let's go ahead and say space programming, because we want to go to this site in this particular video and learn about Swift programming. So let's say that that's our URL. It's not very obvious to most people what the different parts of these URLs are. So let's go ahead and let's build a function to break those down. So let's say that we want a function, and this is going to be a URL parser. And this URL parser is going to take our URL. And there we go. And for right now, we won't have it return anything. We just want to print some stuff. So let's add an onAppear modifier to our text. And then we will call our URL parser, and we will pass in our URL. And with that, we're ready to start figuring out what the different components of our URL are. So let's go ahead and let's do a guard let, and let's just say components. Oh, look at that, it already got it figured out for us. So we will say that if creating our URL components didn't work based on this, and we'll get our nav bar out of the way. But if our URL component creation didn't work, we'll let the user know why. So let's do a print statement here and just say something went wrong during parsing the components. There we go. All right, and so with that, we're able to get a URL components out of our URL. So let's go ahead and walk through what some of these components are. So the first one, we'll just say that we want it to print the scheme, and this URL, or this scheme, will be our components.scheme. Now, as you can see here, our scheme is HTTPS, so that is this part of our URL here. But there's some other stuff that we could pull off of this too. So let's go ahead and we'll say that we want our host. And let's clean this up just a little bit here. So we'll add our scheme. There we go. And if for some reason we can't get it, let's just print NA. Actually, and if for some reason we can't get this value right here, we can ask for a string that is describing, and as you can see, this takes a string that represents our given value, and so this will be our components.scheme here. There we go. And that should get rid of our warnings, as we see there. All right, and then we'll do the same thing with our host. So we'll say we want a string describing, and that'll take care of our null case, just in case this value is null. So our host is just to get our components.host. And we can see here that that is our example.com, www.example.com. So that's pretty cool. So we've been able to start here, and now we've gotten what most would consider like the base URL out of this long URL here. Let's see what else we can pull from our URL. We could pull a description if it has one. So let's say that this is our description, and this will be a string describing our description. So let's say components dot description. There we go. And so now we can see the description is just the entire URL as a whole. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's see what else we can learn from our URL. We could check to see if there are any ports listed in our URL. So let's do that. Let's say that we have a string describing our component ports. As you can see, we don't have any ports on this URL, but let's see what would happen if we changed it and added a port. So let's add a port to that and see what we get here. Now you can see we've got a optional port of 8080. Very cool. Let's keep going. Let's see if we can get some of our path parameters there. So let's say that we have a path, and this is a string describing our components dot path. Okay, very cool. We've got /videos/123. All right, and let's see what else we can get. Let's see if we can get some of this query parameter here. So let's try printing a query, and our query that we're going to try to pull will be string describing our components. And let's see what we have for our query. So we've got our query, so let's see what our query is. There we go. It is a QSwift programming. Very nice. And as you can see, this interpolated the space from our %20 like we were talking about earlier, so that's cool. Now I wonder what the difference between query and query items was. So let's print that next. Let's check our query items, and let's say that this is a string describing our components dot query items. So let's see what those are. Okay, so this looks like gives us an array of the various query parameters. So let's add another query parameter to the string and see what we can get. So we'll say and sort equals relevance. That works. Okay, very cool. So our asking for our query gives us the entire query string, and asking for the items looks like breaks that out into an array of specific items. So that's pretty cool. So now I wonder if we could, since this appears to just be an array, let's see if we could actually take those query items and break them out one at a time. So let's try that next. So let's say that we're going to for each item in our components dot query items, that we want to print each item, and let's say that we have each item dot what. Okay, so we've got a name and a value. Let's see what those give us. Okay, very cool. So we have a name, which doesn't appear to be optional, and then the value, which is optional. Okay, that's nice to know that we'll be able to access specific items, query items, by their name and also access their value. That'll be really useful knowledge to have whenever we're dealing with this in later apps. Now we can see that we've got a path up here that's also just kind of a string. I wonder if we could get access to those path items too. Let's give that a shot. So let's say that we want to print our path items, and we will call components dot path, and then let's split this path on the slash. Okay, there we go. Very cool. So you can see we even with just that little bit of code, we've already got the items separated out into an array with each value. Nice. Now that worked pretty well with just a regular URL. Let's try it with something like a deep link URL or something that looks like a deep link URL. So let's create a new URL here. Let's say we have a new, well, let's just call it deep link URL. So let's call it deep link URL, and that is equal to a URL from a string. And this string is going to be, let's just say, test deep links : / and then we'll say, yeah, that works. We'll say example.com / path to something, and then we've got some query parameters here. Very cool. All right, let's get rid of this URL parser, and let's replace it with a URL that tries to parse our deep link URL. Let's see what we get there. Okay, very cool. So we can see that we've got our scheme is our test deep links here, and our host is example.com. Very cool. And then we don't have a port, and our path is /path /to /something. Okay, so we've got those values, and then we've got our query parameters here, and then we're getting them in an array, and then we're separating each item out with a key and its value. And then we've got our path items here also separated out into an array. So this says path to something. So that's our path to something. Very cool. So it looks like that is how we would break down our URLs. Depending on which part of the URL we actually needed, we could have our URL parser return, for example, an individual query item, or we could get all the path components out of our URL, which is pretty cool. We may find that useful here in a future video. And then we could essentially just have this function return whatever we needed, or actually do something based on these items in our URL. And with that, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you leave a comment, just be nice about it. That's all I ask. Thanks. Have a great day.